Hey guys, my name's Jay, and welcome back to the Canadian Crypt. I hope you all had an amazing weekend. I just want to start the video off by giving a big thank you to everyone who recently subscribed to the channel. The channel just passed the 200 subscriber milestone, which is absolutely incredible. It's so cool watching the community grow, and I appreciate every single one of you guys. For those of you who've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I made a video talking about my top 10 favorite films of the 1970s. I was going to do a similar one for the 80s. But then I thought to myself, narrowing down one film for each year of the 80s would be nearly impossible. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk about my top 5 favorite horror films of each year of the 80s. I actually got the inspiration for this video from my friend Christian Hanna, better known as Christian Hanna Horror over on YouTube. If you aren't subscribed to him, I highly recommend that you do. He's been putting out videos for years, and he's probably one of the most consistent horror creators on the platform. So I'm gonna link his channel in the description below. So with that being said, here are my top 5 favorite horror films of the year 1980. What do you get when a group of college students are trapped on a moving train with a mass killer? You get a classic slasher film. Coming in at number 5, we have Terror Train. This will probably be the cheesiest film on my list, but I actually thought that it was a pretty well-made slasher film, especially for its time. The acting was actually pretty good. Jamie Lee Curtis killed her role. I will say that it was interesting to see David Copperfield in a horror movie. He did play a magician, so he was pretty much playing himself, but it was still cool to see him in the film nonetheless. The only thing I'd really change about Terror Train are the kills. A lot of them happen off screen. It would have been nice to see a little bit more. But if you haven't seen Terror Train, I highly recommend checking it out. Coming in at number 4, we have Motel Hell. Now, if you aren't familiar with Motel Hell, it was directed by Kevin Connor, and it tells the story of Farmer Vincent and his sister Ida, who run a motel called Motel Hello. But this isn't your regular motel, it's also a slaughterhouse where Farmer Vincent makes his famous hickory smoked meat, but their guests get much more than they bargained for when they become the main ingredient. Motel Hell has always given me Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibes, not only for the themes of cannibalism, but for the film's overall gritty look. There are even a few humorous moments sprinkled in there, in a sick way. And honestly, the ending sequence alone is worth the watch, so if you've never seen Motel Hell, I highly recommend checking it out. Alright, coming in at number 3, we have Vernon Zimmerman's Fade to Black. Fade to Black was probably my biggest surprise of 2020. I ended up finding it on Shudder. It's really more of a psychological thriller than a horror movie, but I'm gonna throw it on this list anyway, it's just that good. The film tells the story of Eric Binford, a lonely guy who hates his life, but he finds comfort in the world of cinema. Eric ends up meeting this girl who's pretty much a clone of Marilyn Monroe, which ends up turning into a love at first sight situation for him. But unfortunately, things don't work out in his favor, and this absolutely drives him over the edge. So he decides to transform himself into characters from his favorite films and get revenge on everyone who has wronged him. I really can't say enough good about Fade to Black. It's well shot, well written, well acted, and just an overall amazing film that you should check out if you haven't already. And for any physical media collectors out there, Vinegar Syndrome put out an amazing release of this film that I highly recommend checking out. Alright, coming in at number 2, we have William Lustig's Maniac. Maniac tells the story of a deranged serial killer named Frank Zito who stalks the streets of New York on a hunt for young women to kill before removing their scalps for his growing collection. Maniac is so much more than your average slasher film. It's unique in the fact that most of the film is shot in the killer's point of view, and it dives into deeper themes like mental illness and trauma, which isn't something you see in a lot of slasher films. Joe Spinell gave an incredible performance in the role of Frank Zito, the score is absolutely phenomenal, and Tom Savini blows his own head off. What more could you want? An interesting fact about the Tom Savini head explosion scene, apparently when they went to shoot it, they had to bolt from the scene immediately because it was illegal to shoot a firearm in New York, and it was punishable with a sentence of 5 years in prison. And apparently the car that they used to shoot that scene was later dumped in the Hudson River. Maniac definitely isn't a film that I can revisit on a regular basis, but it's an absolutely incredibly made film that I highly recommend checking out. Alright, coming in at number 1, and this should come as no surprise to anyone, but my top pick for the year 1980 is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I think The Shining is an absolute masterpiece, and I'll be honest, I've never read the book. I'm aware that it isn't book accurate, but it's well shot, well written, and well acted. Apparently the working conditions on set of The Shining were absolutely horrible. Apparently Stanley Kubrick really pushed them all to their limits, and you can definitely see that in their performances. But The Shining has so many memorable moments, like the scene where Jack smashes through the door, the hallway scene with the twins, when Jack is frozen alive, and that truly haunting Dogman scene. So if you've never seen The Shining, stop what you're doing right now, go find a copy of The Shining, watch it. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. That wraps up my list of my top 5 favorite horror films of the year 1980. I would love to hear your list in the comment section below. And for those of you who stuck around to the end, I appreciate you, you're awesome, and if you're brand new to the channel and you love horror content, why not consider subscribing? It really helps a small creator grow. So with that being said, embrace the fear. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay scary.